What is going on, guys? It is Daniel Wright, and you are here listening to another episode of Paving the Way. As always, guys, you can guess it. I'm happy to have you here. Guys, happy Wednesday to you, or whatever day you're listening to this. We're here with another episode this week, we being me and you who is watching this right now. Got another Q&A episode this week, and the reason I'm doing that is because I am rewarding the people who participate. So I've got two questions that came in last week, one via email and one on our Facebook post. So if you want to check out those for reference, you can do that. Well, not the email because that came to me, but Mike Hurst on our email on our Facebook post last week commented a question that I'm going to dive into today. And then the guy I referenced sent an email in to our YouTube channel, Salty's World. His name's Maddie Saltines. I'm going to go ahead and hit on a question he responded back to me with last week. But nonetheless, guys, this is exciting. We're 156 episodes in, and this is what I do it for. I love the interaction. I love hearing what you guys are going through, your wins, your struggles, your curiosity, whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, even if some of it's kind of redundant, it just is what it is, right? Everybody needs to hear the message. We're all at different places in our journey. I've got a ton of people I look up to and learn from day in and day out, and I can only hope to be passing that back to the people who are coming behind me. So with that being said, let's get started. All right, guys, like I said, we've got two questions we are going to be hitting on today. The topic of today's podcast is overcoming rejections and gaining knowledge. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. The first question we had came on our Facebook post of the stream we did last week of the show from Mike Hurst. He asked, can we talk on overcoming price rejections and how to sell value and quality? Well, without being too blunt and to the point, I'm going to try and give a good bit of detail on my opinion on how to overcome price rejections and sell value and quality. The first part of that, when it comes to overcoming price rejections, I can tell you right now, there's very few times where we negotiate on price very much, right? There's always going to be the one-off situations, the clients that we've had for years, the volume package, deals where maybe one client has multiple properties or multiple projects that we're going to be working on with them, so we can kind of package some things together to give them better pricing. But we hear it a lot that we're expensive, that we're too high. I've talked to other contractors even in our market and in our industry, and they've told us that we have a reputation for being a little bit on the expensive side or being on the high side when it comes to some of our services. But on the back side of your question here, Mike, about selling value and quality, that's why we're high, right? I always compare it, and I use this example when I talk to clients, so this, I guess, would be a way to kind of overcome price rejections and sell value and quality. Is I tell people, you have your run-of-the-mill chain steakhouses. When I call them a steakhouse, it's not really a steakhouse. It's a place that serves everything under the face of the sun. Some of those places might be considered, Chili's, Applebee's, things like that, where it's just your chain restaurants and they have a steak on the menu. Is it a steak that's going to come out and maybe be cooked the way you want it cooked and maybe taste good and maybe be worth paying the money that they're going to charge you for it? It's a whole lot of maybes, right? But if you go to a single owned or a very niche steakhouse and you order that same ribeye or that same New York strip or that same filet, yes, it's going to both be two pieces of beef that you ordered, and you're going to order them the exact same way. But one place is going to charge you significantly more than the other. And why is it, right? Because, yeah, sure, the type of beef that you're getting from each place could be very different, right? You've got your, grade A Angus chuck, black Angus, Australian Wagyus, the really high-end stuff. And you got your 70-30 beef, coming from the supermarket. So whatever it may be, you've got different qualities of meat, but you're not paying as much for the meat as you are the experience. You're not paying as much for the meat as you are the service and how you're going to feel when you're ordering that meal, when you're eating that meal, when you're telling your friends and family about how great that meal was, right? And so I tell people all the time, in our world, you can teach a toddler how to seal coat. You could teach a toddler how to stripe and to paint pavement markings. As long as they can color between the lines, they can get it figured out pretty well. But what you can't teach the other people that offer the same services as us is you can't teach them to care. You can't teach them the same customer service expectations that we have in our company. You can't teach them why those things matter. You can't teach them to live out the core values. You can't teach them to treat everyone with respect. All these things, yeah, you can give them the message, right? But you can't just, go find that, just haphazardly. So these are things that we have ingrained over the last 8 years into our company that people are paying for today. Now, early on, we couldn't sell for that, right? We had to be a little bit on the more competitive side. We had to, competitive meaning cheaper, because we had to start gaining the opportunities to prove our worth, right? I touched on this last week. You have to prove your worth first. Then you have to know and hold to your value. And so if you're having problems overcoming price rejections when it comes to selling work, sure, there's always a chance you may just be high. You may have, being priced out of the market or priced out of your area, whatever it might be. And that may be something to consider. If that's the case, ask around to some clients, see if they can give you some competitive pricing to know what you're going up against. But nonetheless, if you feel like you're in line with it and you feel like you're able to back up what it is you're selling, then you just have to continue to show up, prove your worth, and know your value, right? And the way that you're asking this question right now is because you're seeing me on social media, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, any of the platforms we posted on, you're seeing me on here. Well, how do people know your value if you're not showing it? How do people know your value and know that you're worth the higher price if you don't have the reviews, if you don't have the posts on projects that you're doing, taking the time to teach your clients or, other people in the industry about how you do what you do, right? And offering that level of transparency. It's, our business in this world is no different than the restaurant world and the Yelp reviews and the Google reviews. People want to know that if they're going to go to that steakhouse where it's got the $4 or $5 signs on the the review page or whatever it is and says this is going to be a really expensive meal, they're going to look there for the proof that says that, okay, I'm willing to go pay for it. And so you have to make sure that you have the proof to back up why you're charging what you're charging. And so when it comes to overcoming those price rejections and selling the value and quality, transparency is key, right? Showing the value, showing the quality, showing the customer experience through the Google reviews, the social media posts, the website that has up-to-date images on it, showing your people who you are, what you stand for. We say it all the time, people do business with people, not brands, unless you're a Nike or an Adidas or a McDonald's or a Taco Bell, right? Small business world doesn't have that luxury. They have to know who you are, what you stand for, why you do what you do. I have a reputation of being a real good friend, not a feel-good friend. I have a reputation of being a business owner in my community that, yeah, he's pretty confident in what he does. Some people say I walk around a little bit cocky or a little bit arrogant, and that's fine. Okay. That's fine if they think that because they don't know me. But if you actually get to the point where you can walk the walk, you can back up the talk that you have, then overcoming price rejections and selling value and quality, it becomes second nature. The caveat to all of this, though, when you're trying to overcome these price rejections and selling quality, is not every client is yours, because there are some clients who they want the steak from Chili's or Applebee's. That's what they want. They enjoy going there. They like the $2 beers on Thirsty Thursdays, along with their $12.99 steak and their basket of fries that they get with it, and they're happy as can be. And in your industry, in the pavement world, there's people who they just want the lines refreshed and painted. They don't really care if they're straight or they're perfect or they're crisp or they're clean. They don't care if you have a wonderful person in the office to talk to and answer the phone. They don't care about the experience. They just want it done for the cheapest price possible. And if that's the case and you're trying to sell on quality and value, they're not your client, and that's okay. I've told people that as well. Hey, Joe, if you're looking for the best price right now, a cheaper price, or you're looking for us to match something or whatever it might be, then unfortunately, we just may not be the best contractor for you. And that's okay. No skin off our back. Best of luck to you on your project. And we walk away friends, and maybe they'll call us back next time. So don't get too hung up on trying to overcome all the price rejections and whatnot. Just know your worth, prove your worth, and know your value. And make sure you hold to that and you're willing to prove to the clients, prove to the people around you why you charge what you charge and what you bring to the table in doing so. On to the next question. Mr. Matty Saltines, the Salties World, who commented on our YouTube video last week. He emailed me back here after he sent an email just appreciating the fact that it took the time to address his question, which I appreciate that, Matt, if you're listening to this. But it's interesting. His question here, and I've got kind of some interesting feedback here, but I'll just get into the question. He asked me a follow-up question. And he said, how did you gain the knowledge that you know? I've spoken to paint companies, picking their brains, Facebook groups, YouTube, etc. But is there a traditional way that I'm missing or something that we all just have to figure out the hard way type of a situation? I'm trying to feel more confident, even though I have a lack of experience. Plus, I don't want to screw anything up. If you were wanting to do it all over again, what would you do differently? Well, first and foremost, Maddie, I'd recommend going back a couple episodes and listening again to the 3 things I would do differently if I would start my business again today. So I've got an episode on that. That was just a few weeks ago. But nonetheless, to answer your question here, the story of how I kind of came up into this business, in this industry, not to get into how I got into the business, but how I started learning about it. When I first got into pavement maintenance, I had no idea what this industry was. When I was approached by the guy who started at Craig to buy it, I thought it was like a parking lot maintenance company where you went and picked up trash at nighttime or something like that. Had no idea. And so, in the day and age we live in, right, I go to the internet and start looking up parking lot maintenance companies. And when he told me it was striping and signs and bollards and wheel stops and all that, I just started kind of looking that up. Well, that led me to some different Facebook groups that were out there. There was a slew of them. This was probably about 9 years or so ago. There was a slew of them then. Since some are still in existence, some have shut down or whatever it may be. But it was more or less a chat room of a bunch of contractors and vendors and suppliers from all over really North America. Some were worldwide. But there had been people, they were in these groups that had been doing this stuff for 20 or 30 years. Some of them who were brand new to it, like myself, and everywhere in between. And so truthfully, I spent a lot of time in those groups just asking questions. And I tell you what, man, some of those people were ruthless. I asked a question out of true curiosity because I had no idea what I was doing. And some people were on there and called me everything but they said a lot of really rude things. But then there was a couple who they messaged me on the side. They said, hey, Daniel, I saw your note about this, or I saw your question about that, or whatever it might be. And they messaged me and said, hey, here's how you do it. Here's my cell phone number. Give me a call if anything comes up. So what it was is I went to the broad spectrum of, the internet to try and learn about how to do striping or how to do seal coating or whatever service I was trying to learn. And then the couple of guys who were respectful in how they answered my questions because they had the true desire to help and to teach. Those are the ones that I started to latch onto and develop friendships with. And some of those guys, great guys running great businesses, but I've taken my business model past where they wanted to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. So therefore, they remain in my life as, peers, acquaintances, people who, if they call me once or twice a year, I'm happy to help them. I might call them about something if I know they're good at it. But nonetheless, I found those people to kind of latch onto and develop those friendships with. Since then, there's been a handful of them where I've gone to their businesses. They've come to mine. We meet up in Florida on vacation, have dinner with our families together, so on and so forth. And so in this world, Maddie, when you're getting into the pavement world, it's a very niche market. I can almost guarantee that if you go out and walk around your local shopping mall or supercenter and you ask people what they do for a living, you're not going to find another person that says they do pavement maintenance, that they do striping or seal coating. It's just not a typical industry to be in. And so when you get into this industry and you start developing the relationships, whether it's with people like myself, a good buddy of mine, Cam Roberts, he's up in Canada, so you're probably not going to run into him on the beach anywhere down around here. Well, sometimes he comes down to Florida, but or a mentor of mine, Steve Brainey, up in New Jersey. People, Marvin Joel's up in Wisconsin. There's a handful of guys that I've just developed friendships with over the years that have been great mentors to me, right? So getting yourself plugged into groups, right? I've been a part of a top contractor school for years. It's a great network of individuals. They're not just pavement people, but they're contractors of all trades, of all different skill levels, all different journeys. People just starting out like yourself, all the way up to people who've been running a third generation family business. So getting yourself plugged into different industry networks, going to the trade shows, taking the classes, learning the things that this industry has to offer is all absolutely necessary and will fast track your learning progress. But nonetheless, to answer your question there about is some of the stuff you have to learn the hard way? Yes. Right. I'm going on 9 years into this business, and just this week, just today, had to have a meeting about estimating and calculating things properly, and our usage reports, and estimating how much paint we're going to use to paint 26,000 feet of lines at a rail yard, right? So we're constantly having to learn things the hard way, and they come at an expense, right? Sometimes they come at several $1,000s. Sometimes they come at an extra couple days on the job site. Sometimes they come at sleepless nights or stress or worry. So the expense comes in all different ways, but it will come with an expense. And you have to make sure that you're willing to endure those expenses, to pay the dues, and to keep showing up time and time again, to keep learning and keep stacking. It wasn't until, recently that I've started having more people actually like yourself asking questions about this stuff, whether it's in the pavement industry or just about business in general. And I think sometimes we get caught up in just doing the things every day. We don't realize how much we've paid the hard way. Right? How much money we've spent learning this, how much time we've spent, how much investments we've made as business owners, as leaders, as people taking the risk, taking the chance on what we're doing here to try and build something that we can be proud of, to try and build something that other people can come in on this journey with us and build a life they can be proud of. And that's what it takes, is to learn the things the hard way. Because if you skip that, you have no foundation to grow on. You have no foundation to lean on when it gets hard going to the next level and the next level and the next level. So a lot of the best lessons you're going to learn in your life are going to come through the hard way. One of my good friends, his name's Toby. He's in land development and site development. But when I first met him, he was working for a general contractor building gas stations. And I remember I was out on this job site. He had reached out to me through Google, hired me to stripe this gas station. And it was back when I only had 1 or 2 different striping machines. So I was having to swap colors in it to paint the blue for the handicaps and then the yellow over there. It was a mess. I was out on this job site by myself one afternoon trying to stripe it. This guy walks up, big buff guy, all tatted up, all down his arms. And I'm like, man, I don't know who this guy is, but he looks, like somebody you don't want to mess with. First time I'd ever met Toby. Well, Toby was the client at the time. And he walks up, he said, hey man, how's it going? And as he's looking at me, I've got blue paint splattered all over this brand new concrete because something sprung a leak somewhere. And I had no idea how to fix it. And he tells the story. He could see like the not the fear, but kind of the stress just on my face. Like I was distraught. But yeah, nonetheless, I said, hey man, I'm Daniel Wright. I got a little bit of an issue here, but I'm working on getting it cleaned up. No big deal. Get it done. And then I find out that he's a client. And so then I'm really making sure he knows I'm getting it cleaned up and it's all going to be good. But that's a lesson I had to learn the hard way, right? Getting into projects where, I sign up to do a job thinking I'm going to have help. And I'm out here doing a storage lot that's the size of 3 football fields on a Sunday afternoon, trying to meet a deadline that I told this HOA that I would get it done. And the weather put us behind schedule, so it messed up my, the part-time helper schedule that I had. And I'm out there trying to seal coat something the size of a football field by myself because I want to keep my promises to this client. That's a lesson I learned the hard way. But I was willing to show up and put one foot in front of the other, regardless of how I felt, regardless of the fact that my Kelsey and the family was off having dinner on a Sunday evening together and I was missing out on it, regardless of the fact that I had no idea if this project was even going to turn out okay. This was just the seal coating part of it. I still had to stripe, 200 or 300 parking stalls and get that figured out too. So at the end of the day, Matt, like the lessons that you learn the hard way are going to be the shit that you build on and build on and build on and be able to build yourself into the man that you need to be. I may or may not have heard through the grapevine, you're a family guy. You're starting your business up to try and build a life for you and your family that you can provide for them and be proud of them. And so the more lessons you learn the hard way by going out and just doing it, taking educated guesses, educated chances at accomplishing something that you've never done before, the more you go and do that, the more confidence you're going to have, right? Part of your question was you want to feel more confident even though you have a lack of experience. The only way you're going to build confidence is through experience. Find the clients that are willing to let you get that experience on their property, right? Find them and say, hey, if you pay for my paint, I won't charge you for my labor. I just want to get some practice. I'll make sure that it's done right. I might take a little bit longer than the other guys or whatever it is, but I'm looking to get some practice. Use your network of family, friends, coworkers, peers, churches, schools, things like that are always willing, to take on, volunteer work or pro bono projects. And make sure to get yourself out there, document the process, take the pictures of what you're doing so that way you can show the clients in the future what you've accomplished. And you have to do that to build the confidence. And it doesn't stop there, right? As you start to build a team, they need to build confidence too. They need to get on the machines and learn how to stripe and learn how to clean and learn how to crack seal or seal coat or whatever service you're offering in your company. And so when you ask at the end here, if you wanted to do it all over again, what would you do differently? I think the biggest thing that I always answer when I get asked that question is I would have thought bigger sooner. I would have thought, what impact is the decisions I'm making today going to have on the people coming down the road in the future? What things do I need to put into place now to allow the person who we're going to hire next year to be able to get trained faster and to feel better and more confident about their role? What things do I need to document as far as the processes to be able to teach things and be able to, make sure that we're duplicating what we want to duplicate? So thinking bigger sooner is what's going to allow you to build confidence and to take chances and risks that you might not otherwise take. Because I think one of the biggest enemies of growing a business is the business owner thinking too small. A couple of years ago, we had a theme in our business. It was think bigger. And it was the year that I realized that I have full-time individuals committing their full-time work hours. Some weeks that was 30 hours, other weeks that was 70 hours. But they were committing their full-time hours, their career working hours to this business. And if I don't start thinking bigger as the leader of this organization, I'm selling them short. I'm letting them down. And so my challenge to you when you're starting out your business, if you don't win and you don't think bigger, who's going to lose because of it? And I think with that being said, that'll wrap up Q&A for today. But guys, as always, I appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget, follow along our journey. If you're curious about what Proline is and what we do and all the examples I talk about on this show, check out our YouTube videos. New one gets released about every single Friday. Right now, we got a series coming out of a project we did for an apartment complex. It was a 3-phase project. And our guy, Randy, has been killing it on the media. The crew has been killing it on production. And we are just rocking and rolling through 2025. So as always, guys, appreciate you tuning in. Definitely don't hesitate to shoot me any questions, comments, anything like that you want me to talk about here. And we'll keep rocking and rolling.